I want to take this opportunity to welcome you back. It has been great to see everyone this week. I look forward to our continued work this year in ensuring high levels of achievement for all of our students. And speaking of high levels of achievement, the purpose of this webinar is to update you on our math plans for this school year. Just a little history. Last year, a team of grade 5 teachers and I met during the data retreat to examine our grade 5 math data due to some dips in student performance that we had noticed over the past several years. We put together a plan, which we implemented last year, and the plan worked. Our student achievement in math improved by 5 percentage points. In examining our grade 6 data, this year we had some minor dips in achievement, and we want to be sure to address those dips before they become a pattern. Therefore, we're going to follow a similar plan in grade 6 that we followed last year in grade 5. So in this webinar, I'm going to provide you with information on what we saw overall in our math achievement from last year's PSSA, and I'm also going to share our plan for this year. I promise to be brief. I'm going to go through the anchors and show you the trends over the past 4 years. I'm going to summarize the trends, talk about what they mean, and then I'll discuss our plan for the year. Are you ready? When you look at the first set of anchors around numbers, number systems, number relationships, computation, you can see some interesting trends. On anchor 8.1, we're pretty consistent. On anchor 8.2, we kind of go up and down. And then on anchor 8.3, you can see a trend upward. What does this mean? Well, the content in 8.1 is all around equivalent forms, magnitudes, numbers, number theory, percentages, whereas 8.2 really focuses in on selecting and using operations to solve problems. And then 8.3, where we're seeing our growth, that's hitting estimation and then just basic number calculations using the 4 operations with whole numbers, decimals, and fractions. When you look at the measurement anchors, B.1, you can see that last year that was a real issue for us. And interestingly, the area of measurement has been an issue for grade 5 as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Your B.1 measurement anchor is all around elapsed time. Now, interestingly, even though grade 5 had some issues with measurement, they don't really hit elapsed time. Grade 4 hits elapsed time. So there's kind of that missing piece in grade 5, and perhaps that's the reason for the decline in your assessment results. B.2, anchor B.2 is relatively steady, and really that one's around reading rulers, measuring and doing perimeter of polygons, properties of triangles, and those kinds of things. When you look at geometry, we're relatively consistent, particularly in C.1, and then in C.3, we've seen some growth over the past 2 years. So what is that targeting? C.1 targets properties of geometric shapes. And as I said in the summarization on this slide, the scores in C.1 are down, but last year's score was the highest of the 4 years. On C.3, that's really focusing in on coordinate planes. That's a very specific anchor. When we look at algebra, we see some really good news. In anchor D.1, you can see growth, and it's pretty steady growth over 4 years. And then D.2, interestingly, is kind of the opposite. So the content that those 2 anchors target are creating, analyzing, and extending patterns. Again, that anchor is growing, and it's the highest in 4 years. And then conversely, anchor D.2 is this is really the big one, solving one-step equations, matching equations or expressions with one variable, substitutions of 1 or 2 variables to simplify expressions. And this one is the one that has really some long-term benefits for our students, particularly as they go into Algebra 1. So that's an anchor that we really need to pay attention to. And finally, the last set of anchors around data analysis. You can see E.1 on the rise, E.2 really inconsistent, particularly in the 2011 school year, but again, we seem to be on the upward spiral. And then E.3 also kind of inconsistent. So the content is interpreting data in tables, graphs, and charts. And again, piece of information for you from your incoming students. Their 5th grade data, E.1 was the lowest, horribly low. So that's an area for you this year to know about your students. E.2, that's the one that seems to be declining. Mean, median, mode, and range. Again, these are kinds of simple things that you could include in morning work, math boxes, consistent practice. And then E.3, which is inconsistent, focuses in on probability. So that was a real quick summary of what the trends are in our data over the past 4 years district-wide. And I know you've had an opportunity to look at your building, but I wanted to really show you the big picture and then talk about, okay, here's the plan. What are we going to do about it? Step number 1, and I can't emphasize this enough, to know the anchors. Know what is being assessed, know what our proficient skills are, so that you can constantly be honing in and targeting where students are in relationship to achieving those skills. Step number 2, I'm going to check in with you as a 6th grade group of teachers to see where you are in your pacing. I will gather this information 3 times a year, October, December, and February. I'm going to ask you where you are, and then I'm going to put that information together in a chart or a table and send that out to all grade 6 teachers. The purpose of doing that is for self-assessment. It's for you to say, where are you in your pacing in relationship to your grade level partners? And then ask yourself some questions. If you're right on target, then you're saying, okay, what do I do to keep pacing at a steady rate so I am able to have my students learn a lot of the content that they need prior to assessment. If you're way behind on the pacing, then ask yourself some questions. Why am I where I am, and what is it that I can do to help my students gain more momentum in the learning of their skills? So again, the purpose of that is for self-assessment. Step 3, there's really 3 skills that I'd like you to target and spiral throughout your entire year. They were very weak on the grade 5 PSSA for your students, so coming in, you can guess that these are areas of focus for you. Elapsed time, calculating mean, median, mode, and range, and reading and interpreting charts and graphs. So those are 3 areas that really need your attention and that need to have continuous practice with your students. So what I'd like you to do as a grade level team is to devise a strategy to have students consistently practice this skill. I want you to share that strategy and discuss that strategy with your building principal. Here are some ways that you can do that. Utilize Study Island. It's there, we pay for it, and it's a great resource that allows you to target your student needs. Use math boxes. Use morning work, or any kinds of combination of those activities. But remember again that practice only makes sense if you know that students know the skills. So you need to take some time and assess these skills and see where students are and group accordingly. Therefore, I have created some small formative assessments on those 3 topics that I will be putting into Study Island. And I'd like your students at some time during the year to take these assessments. You can determine when they take them, but they will give good practice on these areas, and it's a good way for students to practice, assess, and you to gather information about where they are and group accordingly. I will communicate with you when these assessments are created, and I will let you know how to access them. Again, we did this last year with grade 5, and it was very successful. So I will talk to you more about that as they are created and available. And then step 4 is that we will be administering the Foresight math assessments and the CDTs. You're going to administer 2 Foresights and you're going to administer 2 CDTs. And if you remember, CDT stands for Classroom Diagnostic Test. It's what your students took last year so that we could use some of that data to help us make placement decisions for grade 7. Students will take Foresight at the end of September and at the end of February. CDTs will be given in October and December. So what this means is that you will have a core assessment given every month. It's a larger assessment, but it will provide you with a lot of data about many of the anchors so that you can determine where your students are and what they need. I know that you might be scratching your head and saying, that's a lot of assessment. But as you know, one of the things that we have learned about assessment is that it's an integral part of instruction. It's not an extra. It's only an extra if we don't do anything with the data. However, I know that we've embedded a lot of processes in all of your schools to regularly analyze data and align our instruction according to student needs. So I'm not worried about that piece. Nevertheless, you will have this assessment every month in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the CDT, the Foresight, or the math benchmark, to give you information about your students. Additionally, please note we will use the CDT data for grade 7 placement decisions. Last year we only had one assessment. This year we will have 2. Finally, this plan will be posted on the intranet in your grade level math folder. I've also sent the plan to you, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And remember, there's lots of strength in our data, so keep doing the many wonderful things that you are doing. This plan just helps us target some of those areas of need. And lastly, I'll say thank you to you for all the work that you do on behalf of our students, and I wish you the very best year possible. Thanks.